Yo, I want to tell you a story that I believe you can take some value away from. So, when I was younger, I used to be super embarrassed by my name and more specifically just my culture. I grew up in very like white towns, white schools. I was like the only Pakistani kid. Maybe there's like a one or two Indian kids in like my whole grade. And that used to embarrass me so much because when the teacher would, be the first day of class, and they'd be calling out names on roll call, like, are you in the right class? Or this is the fourth grade with this or whatever. And then go through the roll call. And when they'd say my name, like Ali, I used to get super embarrassed because obviously to them, they thought it was Ali, right? Like the girl's name. So they'd say Ali or Ali or Ali or like all this stuff. And I used to just cringe because like I used to be like, oh yeah, it's Ali, and like I would mumble and I would stutter because I used to be embarrassed as being brown. And then there was like some times when there were actually girls in my class who had like Ali, the name Ali, but it was literally spelled Ali, the exact same way I spell mine. It used to make me cringe so much. The fact that when I was in middle school, just randomly on like the roll call, I just said, "Oh, actually, I go by A," like just the letter, just A, because I used to get so embarrassed by my name. So I'd have like these teachers like calling me A, but I at least had it in half the classes, so half teachers were calling me Ali or Ali, the other half were calling me A, and I was like too shy to correct them, so I just accepted it. And then even with my last name, people would ask me like, "Oh, how does it pronounce like Malik or Malik or Malik?" And I didn't know what to say. It's like, "Oh, I'm not, actually not sure." And obviously that's because like us with like Pakistani like Muslim names, they get very Americanized. Like Hassan becomes Hassan, Irtaza becomes Irtaza, Muhammad becomes Muhammad. So I was in this weird limbo of like, what actually is my name? Why am I so embarrassed by it? And then I remember there was one of these like parent teacher conferences when my teacher came to my middle school, and my mom came home that day after that like whole parent teacher conference, and then she was like, "Why are some of these teachers calling you A? I never heard this nickname before." And I was like, "Oh yeah, just like a nickname I have." And she's like, "Who gave it to you?" And I'm like, "Oh, I just thought it'd be like I was kind of embarrassed if some teachers can't like call me this or that." And my mom told me like, "No, you should be proud of your name. I named you after Imam Ali, one of like a very prominent like religious figure in my religion's history." But I was still felt embarrassed by it up until this One Direction singer Zayn Malik. He got put on the radar because all these girls are obsessing over him. So when I told people, "Oh, my name's like Ali Malik," they were like, "Oh, like Zayn Malik." And for some reason, like my name became super cool. Then it was like, "Oh, you have his last name. It goes to your cousin," all this dumb stuff. But he made the name cool. I'm sure like before, I'm sure like he may have been. He was probably like in like England or something. So he's probably embarrassed by his name a bit too. Maybe this could just be a thing for me. So I was like, wait, hold up. Like, this kind of blew my mind. The idea of, like, he made the name cool. The name didn't affect him. He affected the name. And then as I got into, like, my early high school and, like, late middle school, there was also, like, I got more into, like, the NBA. I didn't, never really watch basketball much. Everyone around me was so into it. So I'm like, oh, let me watch it, too. And some of these guys had the weirdest names ever. Some of these, like, African Americans, like Giannis or, like, these are really super, like even LeBron James, it's kind of quite an odd name, like LeBron. Like these names sounded so foreign and strange to me, especially the super African ones. But then I realized like those names were probably lame, but these guys became they gained so much status, got such a high level of prestige, success. They worked so hard at the NBA that those names became cool. People started naming their kids after those people. It blew my mind how like you can make your name have meaning. Even now, I notice like when people say my name, like, "Oh, Ali said," like there's a certain level of enthusiasm and emphasis they put in that name. There's some power behind it because of who I am compared to who I used to be. People said, "Oh, Ali said," like it doesn't have the same weight when I was in elementary school versus that it has now. It's because of like I've done a lot more things in my life unless I'm a cooler person or whatever. And even the same thing applies with your culture as well. I used to be super embarrassed being brown. My grandma, who would like drop me off to like school, she would always wear like super traditional clothes and a hijab. She did not assimilate at all. I don't think she's ever wore jeans once in her entire life. She was wearing these super traditional clothes, and she was showing up with my sister, who was also wearing a hijab, to like my basketball practice, picking me up from school. And I used to be like, "Oh, just pick me up, farther away from the school and this and that." But like now, like for some reason, it's almost like something in the past like 5 years, like it became kind of cool to not be like traditionally white. Like if you're Asian, you had this like all these, I guess like food became more cool because like it's like, oh, like the food actually, Pakistani Indian food's actually pretty good. People are like, oh, you guys actually have like really cool jewelry. And like they used to wear, girls used to wear a lot of this like the like henna. Like it's becoming way more mainstream now. So all these things in my culture I used to be super embarrassed by had like becoming cool. And that just goes to show you that if you're embarrassed by who you are, actually one more example I want to give you is Conor McGregor. Like, I always thought the Irish were super lame. Never even debated in a country once. I went there. All they have is, like, bars and churches. Just a small, tiny island. Nothing. They all just talk weird. But Conor McGregor, like, he made the Irish seem so much cooler because he's, you know, being such a professional fighter. And obviously, you know, he's super arrogant, and I'm not the biggest advocate for him. But it goes to show that your culture, your name, the things that you're born with, they don't define you. You define those things, especially for yourself. If you believe that, like, you know, back when I was like in one more thing, when I was back in like elementary school and middle school, like I used to be embarrassed being the only brown kid because, you know, I'm so different. But when I got to high school and college, I felt better being brown. Like I was like, oh, I'm different from all these people. They all have the same names, they all look the same, they all eat the same food. When I show up and I'm like eating like lychees, and like I'm like, oh, you want to try one? Like, whoa, this is so cool. It's like I felt unique and special being the only brown. Obviously not in college, and because, you know, I was in the Bay Area and like every person in the Bay Area is brown. But it just goes to show that, you know, if you're, you know, maybe relate to the younger version of me where you feel embarrassed by who you are, you're kind of like feeling kind of awkward bringing like curry to school, and like, you know, maybe it was my breath smell bad from like the nahari I'm eating and your fingers are kind of like orangey from like the turmeric and all that stuff. Realize that if you own it and you say, yeah, this is who I am, this is who I eat, and I'm leveling up in life, people will be impressed by your background and your name and everything about you based on who you have become. So I wanted to share that with you. Maybe this is relatable to you, maybe it's not, but it's just something that popped into my mind I wanted to share with you. It just makes me cringe how much I used to cringe at being brown and having a name like Ali. But now I'm so impressed by it. People are impressed by me impressed by my background and my name and all this stuff because of who I have become. So if you are embarrassed by who you are, just continually level up in life, improve yourself, and people will be impressed by your background simply because of what you've achieved in your life. Yeah. Even the president, think about like the last president, 2 presidents ago. Damn, time flies. But Barack Obama, like what an odd name, like Barack. Like, have you ever heard that name before? No. But because he was the president, that name has so much value, you know, like Obama. People say it with a level of enthusiasm and pride. Even people who don't like it, who don't like the, you know, that president, they still speak a level of respect because of what that person has achieved. So achieve things in your life and you'll naturally find that people will be impressed because they'll want to know, oh, where did this guy come from? What's his background? Because of who you are. So I want to share that with you. Anyway, go on now, get off YouTube and go kill the day today. Love you.